In this lesson, we're going to read a news article together so you can improve all areas of your English. You'll expand your vocabulary, learn advanced grammar, and improve your pronunciation at the same time. And this article discusses a current event. The US has officially left the World Health Organization. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Our headline, US officially leaves World Health Organization. This headline is short and to the point. And to make headlines as short as possible, certain words that are required grammatically are omitted, but only in the headline. Do you know what words are omitted in this headline? There are two words, and it's the same word both times. I'll give you a hint. You need something before this word. The United States officially leaves the World Health Organization. Just remember that this is only something that's acceptable in headlines. Don't worry about taking these notes or any notes in this lesson. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's keep reading. The US, notice we are now in the body. So you must use proper grammar, and articles are required grammatically. It is always the US, the United States. The US has officially withdrawn from the World Health Organization. Again, the World Health Organization. So when you turn this into an acronym, which is very common because internationally, when you hear WHO, you know what it means. But the article is required. And it's the because it's a specific organization. The WHO, the World Health Organization. So here, the US has officially withdrawn. So this is the verb to withdraw. To withdraw is conjugated in the present perfect. It's a completed past action, but there's a result in the present. The result is the US is no longer a member of the WHO. And that's what to withdraw means. You may be familiar with this in terms of money, because you withdraw money from your bank account, which means you take out. But in this context, someone withdraws, it means they stop being a member or they stop participating in, they stop being involved in something specific. So in this case, the WHO. This could be very common in sports. The team withdrew, that's the past simple, the team withdrew from the competition. So they are no longer involved in the competition. They left the competition. They quit the competition. But you can only use this if you are formally involved in or enrolled in. So you would say, I stopped watching this video, because it's not a formal process for you watching this video. But let's say you're in my course. Then it is a formal process. So you could say, I withdrew from the course. So don't use withdrew just to replace stopped. You have to use it only with formal involvement. Also notice the preposition required. You withdraw from something. So from the WHO, from the course. And you already saw it's an irregular verb. Withdraw, withdrew, withdrawn. Those are the conjugations you need. So the US has officially withdrawn from the World Health Organization, WHO, leaving the UN agency. So the World Health Organization is an agency of the UN, the United Nations, leaving the UN agency without one of its biggest donors. So a donor is someone who contributes financially. So this suggests that the US was one of the WHO's biggest financial contributors. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. US President Donald Trump. So here, this is an official name. President Donald Trump. US describes what president. So this is why we don't have the US President Donald Trump, because you wouldn't say the Donald Trump, right? So that's why you wouldn't say the US President Donald Trump, because it's his official name, and official names don't take articles. US President Donald Trump signed an executive order signaling the withdrawal. So here, the withdrawal, this is the noun form. So it's speaking about the US withdrawing. That would be an action, but here they're speaking of it as a noun. Just like you would say the removal rather than saying the company removed. If you want to talk about, or the company is removing, that would be the verb, but you could talk about it as a something and say the removal. So same thing, the withdrawal. So Trump signed an executive order signaling the withdrawal a year ago. Okay, so this is a year ago. This was before it was official. So signaling, this means giving the public notice, letting the public notice, letting the public know that this is happening. Because an executive order isn't official at that point. So that's why they included officially, because a year before they said they were going to. So that's signaling the withdrawal a year ago. Having criticized the organization for being too China-centric during the COVID pandemic. So of course, the organization is the World Health Organization, the WHO. So the US criticized, talked negatively about. That's criticize. Hopefully you don't criticize this lesson. Hopefully you compliment this lesson. You praise this lesson by saying, wow, Jennifer, this lesson is amazing. I love this lesson. So that would be compliment or praise this lesson. So please praise this lesson. Say something positive in the comments. It truly shows me that you support the work I'm doing for you. So having criticized the organization for being too China-centric. China-centric. What does this mean? Adding this dash, centric, means very focused on or influenced by whatever came before the dash. So in this case, China. So the organization was too focused on or influenced by China during the COVID pandemic. So this sounds negative, mainly because criticize the organization. You only criticize in a negative way. So because they said the word criticize, I know that they see this as a negative thing. But using dash centric doesn't have to be negative. For example, it can sound positive. Amazon has always been customer centric. I don't know if you agree with that, but the company Amazon has always been customer centric, very focused on customers, influenced by customers, trying to provide the best for customers. So in this sentence, it sounds positive. Maybe if you're not a supplier, but if you're a customer, then yes. Or you could say something like, our vacation was very food-centric. Food-centric. So all the decisions we made, every place we went was influenced by food. All the tours we took were cooking classes or learning about the traditional food. Our vacation was very food-centric. So yes, you can use this in a negative way, but you can equally use it in a positive way, and it's quite common. Let's keep reading. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So this is the department. The is required with the department. The department of something. Said it made the decision, so the decision to leave, to withdraw from the WHO. It made the decision due to the WHO's alleged mishandling. This word is very important. Alleged. This means that the accusation has been made, but it hasn't been proven. This is very much a legal term because in the court system, you're innocent until proven guilty. But someone could allege that you stole money from the company, but it hasn't been proven as true. So alleged mishandling. The US said the WHO mishandled the situation, but it hasn't been proven as true. The WHO's alleged mishandling of the pandemic, an inability to reform, and political influence from member states. These are the three reasons stated for the decision. Grammatically alleged, notice that pronunciation, alleged. This is a softie, alleged. This is an adjective. It's very commonly used in the adverb form, which is allegedly, allegedly, allegedly. There are 4 sounds, allegedly, allegedly, allegedly. She allegedly stole the money. So she stole the money, that's a fact. She allegedly stole the money. Someone said it, but it hasn't been proven yet. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Let's keep reading. The WHO has rejected these claims. So if you reject a claim, you say no. So the claim was that the WHO allegedly mishandled the pandemic. So the WHO has rejected these claims, said no, that is false. And its Director General, so the Director General of the WHO, said the withdrawal, again, we're using this as a noun form, said the US withdrawing, that would be the verb form, the US doing something, said the withdrawal was a loss for the US and the world. Let's keep reading. In the wake of the pandemic. In the wake of means following something, but whatever happens only happened because of the something. So you can think of it as a result of the pandemic. One of the consequences of the pandemic. So when you say following the pandemic, it means following everything that happened during the pandemic. This is a more formal term that's used to show the cause and effect of something. So we don't use it just to mean after in the sense of following, only if there's a direct cause and effect relationship. So you might use it in a business context and say in the wake of the merger. A merger is where you have 2 separate companies and they combine into one company. That would be a merger. In the wake of the merger, many employees left the company. So this is the result, and then this is the cause. So to show cause and effect, you can use this in a more formal sense. In the wake of the pandemic, WHO member states. So again, there's no the here, because member states, this is the noun, and WHO simply describes member states. So it functions more as an adjective, a descriptive word. WHO member states worked to create an international pandemic treaty designed to prevent, prepare for, and respond to future pandemics. Notice here, and this is something that's very important in English sentence structure. If a preposition is required with the word you must include that preposition even if the noun is not specified. So you prevent something, no preposition, and that's why it's just prevent. You prepare for something. That's why for is here. You respond to something. And that's why to is here. Because future pandemics is the noun for all three. So if you said it separately, you would say the treaty is designed to prevent pandemics. It's designed to prepare for pandemics. It's designed to respond to pandemics. And that's why you must include the preposition and you must change the preposition if it's different. And if there's no preposition, well, then of course you don't add one. But that's a very, very important point about English grammar. Let's keep reading. Including sharing vaccines and drugs more fairly. So this is also what they'll do to help with their objectives, including sharing vaccines and drugs more fairly. Let's keep reading. The treaty was finally agreed in April last year by all WHO member states. So again, if you got rid of this word, it would be all member states. States is plural, and you're using all, which means every member state. So you don't need an article here. And that's again why there's no article, and WHO just describes the member states. Last year, by all WHO member states, apart from the US. This is important, apart from, because technically it isn't all. It's all but the US. So often we still want to make something sound impressive or like there's just full agreement. So we say something like, I finished all my tasks except one. And then you add that on at the end, except one. Or instead of except, you can use apart from the US. Except the US, apart from the US. Except is the more everyday usage. Apart from sounds a little more formal and also isn't as commonly used, which also makes it sound more formal. In a job interview, you might say, I meet all the qualifications apart from one. And say this part very quickly and hope they don't remember this part and they only remember this part. So it's a great strategic communication technique. Washington has traditionally been one of the biggest donors to the WHO. So again, we already learned that a donor is someone who contributes. Now, before I emphasize financial contribution, but you could also contribute time or resources. So it doesn't only have to be financial contribution. So a donor is someone who contributes. So you could replace this with contributor, but if you want to be specific, then you can say financial contributor. And notice the use of the present perfect here, because although the US has officially withdrawn, the US was a member or has been a member for a very long time. So they're using the present perfect to talk about a past action that continues until now. Washington has traditionally been one of the biggest donors to the WHO. And of course, Washington represents where the government of the US is located. So here, when it says Washington, it actually means the US government. So the US. But has not paid its fees for 2024 and 2025, which has already caused huge job losses at the organization. Although WHO lawyers, so again, although lawyers, well, what type of lawyers? So this functions as an adjective. Although WHO lawyers suggest the US is obliged to pay the arrears. The arrears. So here we have rear. So the pronunciation, we have ear, rear, and just ignore this other R, basically, arrear,
rear. So rear is behind, rear. Okay, so just remember that when I explain what this means. And then it's just plural, arrears, arrears. If you're an accountant or in finance, then you most likely know what this means. Well, based on what was just said, can you guess what the arrears are? It's the past money that you were required to pay. So if you rent an apartment and right now it is February, but you did not pay your rent in December or January, those are arrears. You are legally required to pay that money. So you owe that money. But when you pay it, it isn't going to go to your rent in March and April. It's not for the future. It's for the past. So past money due, arrears. And obliged is another way of saying obligated, required, legally required, obliged. Just like in my example, you're obliged to pay your arrears, your rent for December, January, because you lived in the apartment during that time. So if you give your landlord or your property manager money, you might say, this payment is for the arrears, which means I know I owe money for this month, February, but the money I'm giving you is actually to pay for December. And this payment is for my current month, for February, or my next month, for March. So that's arrears. Although WHO lawyers suggest the US is obliged to pay the arrears, estimated at $260 million. So that's for 2 years. So you can understand the financial contribution of the US per year to the WHO. Washington said, again, Washington representing the US government, the US, Washington said it saw no reason to do so. So we have a difference of opinion because the WHO lawyers suggest. So here, although this is a great word to show that contrast, you must pay. We're not paying. So we have although to show that contrast. The US Department said it would have bilateral relations with other countries to ensure disease surveillance and pathogen sharing, but were unable to provide information about which specific countries they had such links with so far. Okay, so this part is talking about what the US is going to do now that they have left the WHO. So said it would have bilateral relations with other countries. And this is what they're going to do to ensure disease surveillance. So notice the pronunciation here, surveillance, surveillance. So monitoring, surveillance, and pathogen sharing. Now this word is important. Do you know what it means? Bilateral? Well, the root word bi, this means two. And then, so the relationship is between two. So in this case, two countries, the US and one country. So rather than the US trying to form a different organization with many countries in it, is going to work directly with one other country. So that's an important point by including bilateral relations. And this last part, but were unable to provide information about which specific countries they had such links with so far. So a link with, you can think of it just as a connection because they say they're going to have one-to-one bilateral relationships with other countries, but where are these relationships? What is the relationship? So they were unable, they couldn't provide. And that is the end of the article. So what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish and you can focus on my pronunciation. US officially leaves World Health Organization. The U.S. has officially withdrawn from the World Health Organization, WHO, leaving the UN agency without one of its biggest donors. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order signaling the withdrawal a year ago, having criticized the organization for being too China-centric during the COVID pandemic. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services said it made the decision due to the WHO's alleged mishandling of the pandemic and inability to reform and political influence from member states. The WHO has rejected these claims, and its Director General said the withdrawal was a loss for the U.S. and the world. In the wake of the pandemic, WHO member states worked to create an international pandemic treaty designed to prevent, prepare for, and respond to future pandemics, including sharing vaccines and drugs more fairly. The treaty was finally agreed in April last year by all WHO member states, apart from the U.S. Washington has traditionally been one of the biggest donors to the WHO, but has not paid its fees for 2024 and 2025, which has already caused huge job losses at the organization. Although WHO lawyers suggest the U.S. is obliged to pay the arrears, estimated at $260 million, Washington said it saw no reason to do so. The U.S. Department said it would have bilateral relations with other countries to ensure disease surveillance and pathogen sharing, but were unable to provide information about which specific countries they had such links with so far.
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put yes, 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 put yes, yes, yes in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.